everyone. All right. My name is Harold Levy. I am the newly appointed director of the Northampton County Democratic Black Caucus. Today we are blessed to have some great friends of ours who are running for office and who already hold office come to join us today. I'm going to let somebody else talk about me later, but right now I would like to introduce to you a new friend of mine who's over there talking right now. Come on, Ed, sit down. And I would like to introduce the Honorable Hakeem. Hakeem, I need you up here, buddy. Hakeem Jefferies is a Democratic member of the U.S. House of Representatives, representing New York's 8th Congressional District in Brooklyn and Queens since 2003. Congressman Jefferies is from Crown Heights, New York, and is serving his third term in the United States Congress. Representative Jefferies is a member of the House Judiciary Committee and the House Budget Committee. Representative Jefferies is also a co-chair of the House Democratic Party Policy and Communications Committee, having been elected to that position overwhelmingly by his colleagues in December of 2016. In that capacity, he's a member of the Democratic Leadership Team. He helps run the messaging apparatus for the Democratic House. He's also the former whip of the Congressional Black Caucus. Yay! Yay! And is a founder of the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Caucus, which is extremely important for all of us. Congressman Jefferies obtained his bachelor's degree in political science from the State University of New York, where he graduated with honors. He then went on to receive his master's degree in public policy from Georgetown University, and thereafter Representative Jefferies attended New York University School of Law, where he graduated magna cum laude and served in the prestigious law school on the Law Review Board. Please join me in welcoming my new friend, the Honorable Hakeem Jefferies.
Thank you so much for that very generous introduction and for your leadership. Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to be here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I come all the way from the 8th Congressional District in New York, otherwise known as the People's Republic of Brooklyn, where I'm honored to serve some wonderful communities of folks, and I've been serving in the state legislature for 6 years and then went on to the United States Congress in 2012. Spent my first 2 terms in Congress serving alongside our great President Barack Obama. I say there was no better time to be in Congress. And he was a phenomenal president. And then, of course, things happened in November of 2016. I say now there's no more important time to be in Congress, no more important time to be in public life. Certainly to Senator Street and to all of the distinguished elected officials who are here. It's great to be here with Susan, and I'll say a few words about her phenomenal candidacy. And members of the Congressional Black Caucus, of which I'm a proud member, are traveling all throughout the country this weekend and have been doing so for weeks and will continue to do so through November 6th, because the stakes are so high in terms of this moment that we find ourselves in. This is a wonderful, brilliant, great country. It was a country that was founded on high ideals, liberty and justice for all, and all men are created equally. Wonderful ideals, but we know also during the founding of the Republic, there was a birth defect. There was a genetic imperfection on the question of race. And that manifested itself, obviously, in slavery. And thankfully, that was rectified. But when you track sort of the African-American experience, our journey in this great country, we know that every time that there has been progress, it is often followed by backlash. Progress and then backlash. And And we find ourselves now in a backlash moment. But if you take a step back and look at that journey, you see that after emancipation and slavery was abolished in the 13th Amendment, and that began the Reconstruction period from 1865 through 1878, where the North descended into the South, and you had the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law, the 15th Amendment abolishing prohibitions on the right to vote as it relates to race. Reconstruction period represented tremendous progress. But then the North left the South in 1878, and that progress was followed immediately by backlash. Jim Crow descended on the South and in many parts of the nation. The KKK rose up. The lynching epidemic took hold. The black codes were put in place, and segregation effectively became the law of the land in many parts of the country. This was after emancipation and after the Reconstruction Amendments. Progress followed by backlash. And then a new generation of folks rose up: Rosa Parks, Fannie Lou Hamer, and Dr. King, and John Lewis, and Roy Wilkins, A. Philip Randolph, and so many others. African Americans and whites, Jews, Christians, Muslims, people rose up to say, no, this is not the America that should exist. And the Civil Rights Movement took hold, and Brown v. Board of Education, and the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which dealt with Jim Crow, the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which dealt with the poll tax restrictions and grandfather clauses and things of that nature, 1968 Fair Housing Act, the War on Poverty, really a creative partnership between LBJ, the Congress, and Dr. King, Medicare, Medicaid, so many other things put in place. Tremendous progress. But then, in April of 1968, Dr. King is assassinated. And then 2 months after that, in California, after winning the primary, Senator from New York, RFK, a great hope at that time, he's assassinated. And then a few months after that, in November, Richard Nixon is elected. And I remember saying to folks that in the aftermath of the November 2016 election, this is not new. How did folks feel at that point in America after all of that progress? And then Richard Nixon runs on a divisive platform. Sound familiar? Capitalizing on anxiety about the progress that had been made by people of all races in America, and he gets elected. And anti-busing, anti-affirmative action, the rise of mass incarceration, when in '71 he declares drug abuse public enemy #1. And when he says that, there are less than 350,000 people incarcerated in America. Today, 2.2 million. More than any other nation in the world. Progress followed by backlash. And then, of course, a new hope rises up. Thanks to people in this room and folks all across the country, when Barack Obama is elected in 2008. And he was a great president. And did tremendous things. Had no help. Because the other side, Mitch McConnell, who's Exhibit A for irresponsible politicians. And he says, my one goal is to make Barack Obama a one-term president. So it was obstruction today, obstruction tomorrow, obstruction forever. Echoing George Wallace. That's what they were all about. Yeah, but Barack Obama gets elected. Now in 8 years, under George W. Bush, this country lost approximately 650,000 jobs. In 8 years under Barack Obama, we gained 14 million private sector jobs. And more jobs under Barack Obama. Unemployment rate was at 10%, he left, it was at 5%. Stock market was at 6,000, he left, it was 18,000. Deficit was reduced by more than $1 trillion. Tremendous progress under Barack Obama without any help from the other side. Because despite the fact that we don't have Democratic problems or Republican problems, we have American problems, they didn't want to help them solve any of those American problems. And so that was tremendous progress, but almost immediately, as is the case with other points in history, his election and the progress that that represented was followed by backlash. And so the Tea Party rises up. What are y'all complaining about? Barack Obama didn't have anything to do with the collapse of the economy. That was some irresponsible bankers and others on Wall Street. But a backlash to his election, they raised this notion that there's voters fraud, no evidence of voter fraud anywhere. But all of a sudden, Barack Obama gets elected, and supposedly there's an outbreak of voter fraud. And then in 2013, the Supreme Court decimates the Voting Rights Act in Section 5. And then, of course, ultimately, Donald Trump is elected for a variety of reasons. And we spoke to the economic anxiety of some, and I don't want to discount that, because there are Americans who voted Obama, Trump. Those aren't people who are voting based on race. They're voting based on economic anxiety dynamics and this notion of change versus the status quo. And Donald Trump represented dramatic change on steroids, with a stick of dynamite that some folks said, we're going to roll them into Washington, D.C., blow the whole thing up, we'll see what happens. Who cares? It can't get any worse. But then there was definitely an element of Donald Trump's election, the xenophobia, the race baiting, the hatred, that was appealing to the backlash dynamic that had traditionally existed. Historians will lay that out a lot clearer than I can. But progress for a third period in American history followed by backlash. So we're in a backlash moment right now, but the great thing about America is that whenever we find ourselves in a tough spot, we always make it to the other side. And no one knows that more than the African American journey. And the thing that's interesting, I grew up in Cornerstone Baptist Church, good to be here, Shiloh. Grew up in the Cornerstone Baptist Church. My mother used to always say to me, life is filled with ups and downs, with highs and lows, with peaks and with valleys. One of the reasons why I think so many folks don't like to fly, when we elect Susan, she's going to fly a lot.
Yeah, there you go.
I fly a lot between New York and Washington, back to New York. And I recognize that one of the reasons why so many folks don't like to fly is because when they're on that plane, they realize at some point they're going to encounter turbulence. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Up in the air, 30,000 feet high, plane starts rocking back and forth, no place to go. It's at that moment everybody on the plane gets religion. Lord, just plant my feet on solid ground. What am I trying to say? You can't get from your point of departure to your point of destination without at some moment along the way encountering turbulence. And so we're in a turbulent moment right now. In America, we're in a backlash moment. And the thing is, when you're in that kind of moment, there are always going to be some folks who will doubt your ability to make it through. A former vice president of the United States once called these kind of individuals nattering nabobs of negativism. They are persistent pessimists, notorious naysayers, cantankerous critics. In Brooklyn, we just call them haters. Folks who will doubt your ability to make it through. But that's why I'm so thankful for people like Susan Wild, who in a moment of turbulence, in a moment of backlash, decided to step forward, to offer herself up, to get involved in this democratic republic, to try to preserve what we have. Even at a moment where it was difficult and it was unclear what the lines were going to look like and whether the incumbent was going to be in the race, but she stepped forward to say, no, things can be different in the United States of America. Sometimes we find ourselves in these moments of turbulence, of backlash. As I take my seat, it reminds me of the time when some folks were gathered at the home of one of the wealthiest people in the world. And they gathered at this estate, and in this estate, there's a lake, and these young people, they're on one side of the lake. And in the lake, there are crocodiles, alligators, one small turtle. And all of a sudden, the owner of the estate shows up. He's on the other side of the lake, sees these young people, and cries out to them, says, if any of y'all jump in the lake, rescue the turtle, and can make it to the other side, I'll give you anything that you want in this world. And about 5 minutes passed by, and nobody responded. So the owner of the estate turned around, began to walk away. All of a sudden, as the owner's walking away, hears a big splash, turns back around, sees one young person in the lake frantically trying to make it to the other side. Somehow the young person dodges the crocodiles, dodges the alligators, gets to the middle, scoops up the turtle, bobs, weaves, makes it to the other side, gets out, dries off, hands over the turtle to the owner of the estate, who's pleasantly surprised, says, congratulations, I'm not sure how you did it, but you made it to the other side. Now, as I promised, you can have anything that you want in this world. And the young person says, well, I just want to know who pushed me in the lake. Sometimes in life, you find yourself in a moment of unexpected turbulence, unexpected adversity. And when so-and-so, I'm not going to call his name, when so-and-so got elected in November of 2016, and we didn't expect that was going to happen, we found ourselves here in America in a moment of unexpected adversity. And when you find yourself in that moment, you've only got two options. You can either sink or you can swim. And the reason why America has always made it to the other side is because good folks have stepped forward. Dr. King said the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. That means there's good folks and there's some rough folks, but as long as the good folks step up, justice at the end of the day will prevail. Today we've got a good person who's running for the United States Congress. That's why I'm here, all the way from New York. Good thing about representing a district in New York, you can't find any Republicans in Brooklyn. So I came here to help Susan Wild get elected, and I'm so thankful for all that you guys are doing to empower the community, to empower the Commonwealth, to empower the nation. When I talk to the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus and other legendary leaders like John Lewis and others, they know that the eyes of the nation are on this congressional district and this community, because you can help deliver a tremendous victory for a great lawyer, a public servant, someone who has dedicated her life to helping others, a super mom, and with your help, she's going to be the next Congresswoman from the 7th Congressional District in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Let's get this done, and let's take the House of Representatives in November. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thank you to Congressman Jefferies. It's such an honor for me to have somebody like him come in and be willing. I know you don't have any Republicans in Brooklyn, but he could be staying home and hanging out with his 2 kids and his family on a beautiful, well, not so beautiful fall day, but doing something other than hitting the trails and working for other candidates. I think it's a sign of other members of Congress have been here in this district also. Today, Congressman Espaillat's coming in a little bit later. We've had all kinds of members of Congress come in, and and they're all Democrats, and to me, that's just a sign of how incredibly important this is and how badly they want to be back in a position where they're able to do the things they want to do in Congress. I can't wait to get there, along with a whole bunch of other brand new candidates across the country this year, so that we can help members like you retake the majority and get in positions of power where we can actually have a Congress that acts as a check on this president that we now have. And it's absolutely critical. I don't think we get another chance at this. I'm scared to death that if November 6th comes and goes and we don't retake the House of Representatives, that this president and the people he surrounds himself with will consider it to be an open license to do whatever the heck they want to do. And he already does that to a large degree, but we have the opportunity to make that stop. So I thank you for being here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Susan Wild. I'm 61 years old, and I'm running for Congress for all of the reasons that Congressman Jefferies just said. I've been practicing law for 35 years, and I want to tell you in a couple minutes how I got to practice law, because I'm the first lawyer in my family, and it's not something that necessarily was going to come to me easily. And I thought, but I've been doing that for 35 years. I've had a pretty decent career, and the last thing on my mind was running for public office. But last year, something came over me. And what came over me most of all was this feeling, this kind of sinking feeling that anybody in the room who's a parent will understand this feeling of, I'm really worried about my kids. I'm really worried about their generation and their kids and their friends. And it was the kind of thing that you get that sick feeling in your stomach, and you feel kind of powerless because there are all these mysteries out there that might happen to them, and you don't know whether it's like when you put you let your kid go out for the first time in a car by himself or herself, and you're thinking, oh, all I can do is pray, but I can't be behind the wheel of the car or even in the car. It was that kind of feeling of just, what can I do to make this a better world for my kids? And so as things started to develop through the year last year, I just made a decision that it was time for me to put my law career on the shelf, which I have. I haven't practiced law since October of last year, and get into this race for Congress. And the only reason I'm in it is because I want to go and do good things. I don't want to go be a lifetime politician. I told you I'm 61 years old. I've already had a career that has been good to me. I'm not looking to go there for 40 years and become a lifer. I want to go and actually do good things. I want to go and join, and this is a positive note for you to take away from this today. I want to go join the most incredible group of candidates who are going to be elected on November 6th that I think this country's ever seen. I have been with a lot of the candidates from across the country, Democratic candidates. We've been together in training sessions. They bring us together periodically for meet and greets so that we know who they are and that kind of thing. And when I go to these meetings and I'm with, say, 100 other candidates, the great thing about it is they don't all look alike. There are candidates running across the country who are going to win on November 6th, and they are different races, different colors, different ethnicities, different religions. Right. And I believe that the incoming Congress in January is going to look like the people it represents in this country. It's not going to look like the freshman class of interns in the White House, which, if any of you have seen that picture, is my son actually interned in the White House under President Obama. And his picture that he has of their entire class of interns, it's like the candidates that I'm running with. All colors, all sizes. You look at the picture of interns in the White House now, it's a sea of white, in case you haven't noticed. And we've had that backlash, but we're going to move forward again. We're definitely going to move forward again. So I want to tell you, I'd tell you a little bit about how I became a lawyer, and then I'll shut up so that we can take some questions and people can get on with their day. My family was a middle-class family. My dad joined the Air Force when he was 17 years old, pretty much to escape a life that he had in Alabama. His dad died when he was 8 years old. His mom struggled to put food on the table for 6 kids. And when he was 17, he was like, I got to get out of here. And he lied about his age. He joined the Air Force. And somewhere along the way, he met my mom. And she always worked outside the house, too, when my sister and I were growing up. And they really stressed education. But it wasn't like, we want you to go to college and we're going to pay for it. It was, we want you to go to college and you're going to have to figure out how to do that. And it was clear that there was that expectation, but it wasn't going to be handed to me. So in those days, it was a long time ago, college was a lot cheaper, and I worked 2 jobs, and I made my way through college, and I did okay. And I started thinking about what I was going to do with my life next, and I really wanted to go to law school. There had never been a lawyer in my family. And I got accepted to a law school going at nights in Washington, to George Washington University. And I started going at night because I frankly had to work 2 jobs in order to keep paying my tuition like I thought was the way I was going to do it. At the end of the first year, I was exhausted. I was seriously thinking about dropping out. And somebody said to me, you know, why aren't you getting a student loan? Everybody here has got a student loan. Even the rich kids here have student loans. And I hadn't even considered it because I grew up with a dad who was always stressed out about money because of his upbringing. And he was one of these guys like, you never go into debt for anything except your mortgage or maybe a car. But other than that, you know, no credit cards, no nothing. But so anyway, I went down to the student loan office. This is 1980. And I filled out what was a very simple form. I don't remember it exactly, but I filled it out while I was sitting across somebody's desk. And 4 days later, I got a check in the mail. This was the days when you got a check in the mail. You didn't do it all online. And it was for my full year's tuition. And I felt such a wave of relief. I was able to quit one of my jobs. I was able to switch over to the day program in school. And for the rest of my 2 years of law school, that's how I got by. I worked one job to pay my rent, my food, and that kind of thing, and I got student loans. And you know what? It was a good government because when I graduated from law school with pretty good grades, I got a good job, and I had a loan that would make people cry, young people cry nowadays, because it wasn't the kind of loan that people get now. But when I graduated, I had an obligation to pay the government back starting 1 year from when I got a job and at 1% interest. 1% interest. That to me is, and here I am 35 years later, I've been a lawyer, I've been a taxpayer, I bought a home, I pay taxes that way, I've raised 2 kids, so I've given back to the government that gave to me. That to me is what good government is all about. Government that invests in the future